Okay, hello. It's been a long time since I've made a video for my YouTube channel, and I would like to share my PLIDA C1 experience because I feel I finally have some closure for this exam. So I took the PLIDA C1. So C1 is the advanced level. So there's A1, A2, which is beginner, and then B1, B2, and then C1, C2. So I took the PLIDA C1 exam in December 2021 in Quebec City. So in Quebec City, since I am Canadian and there is a Dante Alighieri school here in Winnipeg, but it's not very developed and there aren't qualified examiners. So in order to take a PLIDA test, I had to go to Quebec City. And basically there are four parts to the exam. There's listening, speaking, reading, and writing. In general, the way I prepared for each part was for the listening, I listened to a lot of Rai Due on the YouTube channel, which is basically Italian news. For the speaking, I had weekly lessons with my then teacher Carmine, and then I would film monologues and communicative tasks and then play it back to myself, and then so I'd have some feedback. And then reading, I read almost everything I could get my hands on, but I read a lot of Italian novels during this time, like Umberto Eco, and a lot of historical fiction as well. And for the writing, I basically worked on practice exams, and I would get this work corrected weekly by Carmine, my then teacher. So the actual exam, it was in Quebec City, beginning of December. I just remember being so cold. So then it was very cold, and then I was so nervous about this exam. The day before, I remember having heart palpitations. Anyways, I somehow got to the Université de Laval. I took the exam. It's a very long exam. It's, I think, like 4.5 hours. It was really long. And then just the one part, for the listening part, the way the exam was administered differed from the way the practice exams were set up. So then I got into a panic near the end of the listening section because I realized they weren't going to replay the scripts for me, when actually in the practice exams there is an order that they follow where they play the excerpts for you, they let you listen, and then they replay it for you. Anyways, so because there wasn't this consistency for the listening part of the exam, I was very stressed out, and it was kind of bad at the last minute. So then after I got my results, right? My results came maybe, I think, the beginning of February, something like that. And so I passed 3 parts, but I didn't pass one part. I basically failed the writing section by around 2 points. So you need to get at least 18 out of 30 for each section. And for the writing, I think I got 16. So I just needed a little bit more, but it wasn't there. So then, since I failed the writing part, I realized that I need to get a new teacher, because I needed a teacher that could go beyond just correcting my work, and a teacher that could actually take my level of written Italian to an advanced level of Italian. So then in the month of January, I did a lot of interviewing, and in the end, I found Gianluca. And Gianluca is great. What was interesting was he actually has almost no English, and he does a lot of literary translations from French to Italian and Italian to French. And he's an actual Italian foreign language school teacher. So he works with foreign children or students whose mother tongue is not Italian. And then he had degrees from top universities in literature. And then he was also a qualified PLIDA instructor. So I thought, if I need to retake this part of this exam, I need to also work with someone who knows how the test works, right? And so it was a very, very good choice looking back on it. So he studied, basically I took lessons with him once a week for February, March, April, May, and June. And he gave me targeted exercises. He got me to read the newspaper, Corriere della Sera. I would have never done that, but this was actually a really good idea. And then he guided and corrected my written assignments. He knew exactly what my weak points were for my written Italian, and he basically strengthened those weak points before giving me harder exercises and basically pulling up my level to so that I could produce written texts at C1 level. then what happened is the logistics for this exam, which is kind of funny. Later, well, around the month of January, when I emailed Dante Alighieri, Quebec City, they said that they didn't offer the exam. They wouldn't offer the C1 exam until next year, December. So I thought, I don't have like close to 10 months to study for this exam. And then I did a whole search of all the Dante Alighieri societies in Canada. And since Quebec City is the central seat, there really was nowhere else. Even at the Dante Alighieri in Vancouver, they offer maybe A1 to B2 max, but C1 is not offered often. And it might be because, I don't know, there aren't a lot of people that take that exam, or it's hard to get examiners. I don't know how it works, but then I didn't have time to put off this test for a long time. And then also, so then I contacted Mexico City. That's where I took the CHEDLs. And then since Dante Alighieri in Mexico City, it's the seat for all the Dante Alighieris in basically the Americas. So that's North America, Central America, and South America. Since it's basically like the headquarters, yes, they did offer the C1. And so for the month of June, that would be when I would retake the written part of the C1. So that was June 2022 that I planned to take my exam. And then I planned to go with my brother, because my brother at that time, he had finished post-secondary, his bachelor's degree, and then he was free to travel. And I had never been to Central or South America on my own, so I told him that he would go as my bodyguard, and also it was kind of like a graduation gift, right? As I was studying for this exam during the months of, I guess, February to June, there was a really good film I watched, The Road to Wembley. It's about Gli Azzurri, the national Italian soccer team, and how they got to the final match and how they won, right? The European Cup, right? For soccer. It was very funny because I could see this film is so motivating, and I could see parallels with my own story, because for the written task for the C1, you have 2 written tasks, and each part is 45 minutes. And so the first task is usually very data driven. It might be statistics, it might be something based on like social science, or something very data-driven with numbers. So you have to give kind of like a synthesis and a summary. And then the second written task is usually a bit more literary in nature. So that's those are the 2 tasks. So you basically have 90 minutes to write this exam. And it's very funny because the film Road to Wembley, the Italian soccer team, the Azzurri, they played against, I think, they played against Switzerland, and then they played against Spain, and then the very last match they had, because it was the Road to Wembley, and Wembley Stadium is in London, was against England. And it made me laugh because the way the soccer game is set up, you have 2 parts, right? The first half and the second half, and they're each 45 minutes long. And it was kind of like in my head too, like what I had to do for this written exam was, and even throughout the process of studying with Gianluca, I would have English structures in my mind, grammatical structures, because that's my stronger language. And then I would have the Italian ones on the other side, and they would war against each other. So in the same way that I had this war going on as I was writing for 90 minutes, there's this soccer match basically between England and Italy where they're trying to figure out who's going to win. So that was kind of funny. And then, the month of June finally came, and I went with my brother to Mexico City. So we were there for about a week. I think we arrived 2 days before the exam, so we got to just see the neighborhood a bit, and it was good. And I think I took my test on a Wednesday, like a Wednesday morning. But the day of the test, I got there, and then they said that my exam is an hour later, and then I got so nervous. I was like, oh, this can't happen, because I had like some data plan with my brother. He went somewhere else, and then just the coordination, and then I was so nervous, and I thought, I'm going to pass out from the low blood sugar, and I was just a bunch of nerves. But they were very understanding, and they were able to give me a spot where I could write the exam, but there was someone beside me in the room, but I had earbuds, so put the earbuds in as the other person was doing their oral exam and I was writing my Italian exam. And then after I wrote the exam, it went well. Then I was able to chat with Stefano in English, and so Stefano helped me a lot during this whole PLIDA C1 exam, because the way it works is you have like a code number, and then I was registered with Quebec City, but in order to move just the one part of the exam to Mexico City, it was just a big mess, like an administrative mess, but it all worked out well. And then so after that, I walked with my brother to downtown Mexico City, and we went to a bunch of anthropological museums, because my brother loves anthropology and ancient civilizations. So that was kind of fun. Then after we came back home, and then I think it was around the beginning of August when the results were supposed to come out. So I was so nervous about this exam because I invested so much in it, right? And so I was waiting for the results, and I remember sending Stefano an email that said, if you get the news, please just send me an email that says good news or bad news, and then I'll email you back when I'm ready to receive the news, right? But then in the end, he emailed back right away, and it said good news, and he said that I passed. I got 70%. So originally when I was studying, my aim was to get 80%. And my Korean mother, she said, you can't aim to get 80%, you have to aim to get 100%. But I knew then and I know now that my level of written Italian, it couldn't get to that level. Like it's a little, not impossible, but it's just too ambitious. So I was happy even with a 70, because a pass is 60, but then there's a 70, yes. And then what the number doesn't really tell you is there's a quality of written work that is there. And I don't know who graded my exam, but I could noticeably tell, and I was much more confident after studying with Gianluca for the 3 months February, March, April, May, like the 3 to 4 months that my written Italian had gotten qualitatively better. So I was happy with the 70%. And then that was that for the exam. Then last month in December, I was in Mexico City for a pilgrimage, and I went to visit La Scuola Dante Alighieri, to visit their library. The library was closed when I was there in 2022. But then they decided that they're going to prepare the library to be opened up soon to the public. So it was really good. But this time I went and I got to chat with Stefano, this time in Italian, not in English, and also to see the library. And the library is amazing. It's really hard to get Italian books here in North America. And there are some books at the Dante Alighieri here in my city, but the one in Mexico City, it was basically, I don't even know how to describe it. I think in their catalog, they have close to 11,000 books. It was just so impressive. And then it was just so beautiful. I was so happy to see that there are so many books and this love of learning. And I don't know, it's just the school and I guess Italian literacy is something that I just find is so beautiful. And then it's funny that that's when I did a lot of my Italian studying for the C1 test. And when I realize now that I do need to continue a bit more with my literacy project. I do have a small translation project from Italian to English, and I do work with Gianluca for this. But I guess just visiting Dante Alighieri, Mexico City, it was just a good way to kind of close my whole Italian voyage. And I think what kind of helped me to cap that is when I finished my exam in June, I'm just going off of memory. When I finished my exam in June, I was so stressed. And then also I just needed to speak in English. But then this time when I went and then without having an exam on my mind, and then I just got to speak with Stefano in Italian, it's just kind of like I closed my final match, let's say, in the same way that the Azzurri, they finished their match they beat England, right? So to finally close like the other half of the story, which is for me to actually to speak Italian at a very fluent level, right? where communication with a mother tongue speaker is quite natural, and it was just in the most natural way. Even though I didn't have test conditions, I think it was a good way to close that. So in the end, for my PLIDA exam, my grades, I got 21 out of 30 on the written part. For the reading, 22 out of 30. The reading was still quite difficult, but I think it was difficult because there were many more implied meanings that I just didn't catch at that time. For the speaking, I was surprised that I got 26 out of 30. And then for the listening, even with my risky answers, I got 20 out of 30. So that was my PLIDA C1 story. Thank you.